as I'm sending this live, Zoom did do an update. I'm already seeing a few changes, so I don't know if we're going to see any little glitches as we go, but hopefully not.
Okay.
We are going live.
All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our Tuesday, January the 19th agenda session. I now call this meeting to order. Could I get a motion on the minutes, please?
So moved.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second with no objection. The minutes will stand as recorded. This afternoon, we have ordinances on final reading. Under planning, is there any of those items that we need to discuss or talk about at this time? Any of the ordinances on final reading? Councilman Ledford.
Chairman, I believe under planning, item B, we will be asking for a withdrawal, if I am correct, from what I heard during strategic planning.
B?
I believe that's under first readings.
First reading, sorry. Yes, that is first reading. Sorry.
We're on final reading right
Yep.
now.
Sorry, I moved computers and moved paperwork.
Okay. All right. No questions or concerns under final reading. If not, Councilman, we will now go to first reading under planning. And it is my understanding that item B, we will be moving to withdraw that item. Councilman Gilbert.
And on item A, on planning first reading, I'm gonna put, I want to amend at 6 o'clock.
Phil, let me ask you something. Since
Yes.
Councilman Gilbert brought this up in strategic planning, can we have an alternate version that we could have put on rather than having to amend this version?
Yes, sir. Maria, in the most recent version she sent out here, does have that as an alternate version for this evening. And
Okay.
it includes the request that Councilman Gilbert had.
So Councilman Gilbert at 6, we will have an alternate version that you can move to approve.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Attorney.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions or comments under final reading? If not, let's move to resolutions. And I believe, Councilman Oglesby, did we cover the items under Economic and Community Development Committee, I believe? Councilman Oglesby? You're on mute, sir.
I was reading.
Do what?
Here we go. We did.
That's what I thought. Any questions or comments concerning these items? Okay.
No, sir.
All right. Under fire, Madam Clerk, if you would, let's read 7D, please.
A resolution authorizing the Chattanooga Fire Department to purchase 2 Stanley aluminum landing craft fireboats from the GSA contract to replace the current inoperable fireboat for the amount of $238,596.66.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Councilman Ledford.
Chairman, I just wanted to stress the importance of this, given what we have seen in other states such as Alabama, the risk of fires, and to not have this capability for our fire department. I'm glad to see that they're thinking about this and putting these efforts forward, because this could be a lot of lives at stake, and I appreciate their effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. After experience the fire ops one-on-one on Saturday, anything the fire department present, we need to approve it.
Amen. Amen.
Are you still sore?
All right. Thank you, Councilwoman. Moving to Public Works and Transportation, Councilman Mitchell, I believe we did cover these 3 items in committee.
Yes,
Last
sir.
week, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Are we going to go over E, or do we need to go over E, information technology?
Oh, I skipped right over it. Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, would you read 7E, please?
A resolution authorizing the Chief Information Officer to enter into a one-time purchase agreement with DLT Solutions, Inc. for the purchase of Autodesk license and support products effective January 19, 2021 through January 18, 2022, servicing the Departments of Public Works, Transportation, and Regional Planning for an amount not to exceed $32,000.
All right. Any questions? All right, very well. As stated earlier, we did cover F, G, and H in Public Works Committee last week. Anything arising, any comments concerning these three items? If not, I'm going to ask council, would you please pull up your purchasing items for this afternoon? And let me know if you have any questions concerning tonight's purchases. I have heard nothing up until this point. Councilman Gilbert.
Yeah, this might be for Tony. I know in the past there was a backlog of automobiles that needed to be put lights and sirens on. Are we kind of caught up with that? It's been about a year and a half we talked about this.
Let me see, Mr. Salmons. Madam Clerk, would you bring in Tony Salmons, please? Looking at his name on the screen. Good afternoon, Mr. Salmons.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Councilman Gilbert, in relation to your question, I will have to follow up with our fleet division to see where we are on that. I know of late, due to the pandemic, our staff has been impacted a great deal, and we've been shifting other workers around to help with the daily workload. So I'll follow up on that for you.
You can call me back later on. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Anything else under purchasing? If not, we'll move to our January the 26th agenda. If you would please pull up that. And let me know if you have any questions concerning our January 26th. Mr. Attorney, it's my understanding that we have removed the couple of items for the EPB board appointments. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Took those off previously as requested.
Thank you. Anything else? All right. If you would now pull up your future considerations and look those over. If you have any questions concerning future considerations, Councilman Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just looking at the first one under Economic and Community Development. Do we have an attendee that can explain the resolution about the temporary waiver of reversion as it relates to the McCamey Animal Shelter?
I think Ms. Sullivan can explain that. Madam Clerk, would you bring in Ms. Sullivan, please? Good afternoon, Ms. Sullivan.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Thank you for inviting me.
Did you hear Councilman Gilbert, Councilman Mitchell's question?
I did.
All right.
Councilman Mitchell, this is related to some financing that McCamey is doing. And so we need to, for them to be able to do some financing for work that they're doing for their physical plant. They need to be the primary owner of the property. And so that's why there's a reversionary clause. As soon as the financing is through and they've paid back that loan, then it reverts back to us, the property.
Wow, is that legal?
Phil Noblet said it was.
Actually, Valerie in my office said it was legal on here. I believe in that regard, we're trying to at least deal with the financing aspect, and they're wanting to make sure they've at least got security on their collateral. But the city is the property owner in connection with the property here for McCamey. And until you deed that to someone else here in perpetuity on here, it is still city property.
But we are temporarily deeding it to them and going to take it back.
at the end of the 15-year time period, there is a reversionary provision that goes back in. Yes.
Okay, so this is a 15-year loan they're trying to secure.
Yes, sir.
So,
Just during the
so it
period of
literally
the
is for their physical plant, and they're going to do some capital and construction.
Yes, sir.
Correct.
What are they going to do?
That I do not know on the legal end of it here. I know that there's a request to have First Horizon Bank provide the loan financing for that to occur, and they're not requesting that from the city of Chattanooga.
Mara, what are they going to do?
There are animals are in multiple animals are in the same spaces, and so they're providing additional space for dogs and additional space for cats. They're also going to add to the yard so that there's additional space for animals to have outside area, and there's also, I believe there's an addition to the medical unit, but we can be happy to have them send you their whole capital plan so that you can see it for yourself if you like.
I'd love it. Just send it to me offline, please, or get them to. That would be great.
Will do.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Ledford?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Can we bring in Donna, or more? You can answer this if you'd like, but I think I would love to know more about the AHF and the 500,000 that looks like we're going to be able to free up to help people. And I would like to know more about that. I think that is a wonderful idea. If we could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's something Donna can actually bring up more, if you don't mind. We've been talking about that. So,
yeah.
Councilman,
if you don't mind more.
Well, do you not want to wait till we're going to have a committee hearing on that, or a committee meeting next week?
Yeah.
You know, sir, I think I will, and I'll tell you what, just to move us along, I'll get offline with Donna as well ahead of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just think it's worth noting. It's a really good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions about our?
Mr. Chair, I did have one
follow-up.
follow-up.
You're right, Councilman or Vice Chair Smith.
Thank you. Hey, Maura, and maybe this is Maura and Phil. When Jerry asked a question, Phil, you said that we remain the property owner in the McCamey the McCamey item. If they were to default on that loan, I'm assuming the First Horizon wants the property for collateral.
Yes.
Just allowing them to use property for collateral. So if they default on the loan, the city loses the property, or the city is liable for paying the loan?
The city would end up having to pay that loan back to be able to recover. So that's the question about how many dollars are involved in here. There is a quick claim deed, at least at this point in time, if I'm not mistaken. I was just looking at the quick claim deed that was provided to McCamey back in September of 2019. So the property has been quitclaimed to them, but there is a right of reversion in that deed that says that if it ever stops being used for the purpose of an animal care and adoption facility, then that property would revert to the city in connection with that. So that's the question on the reversionary stay that is involved during this loan period. And the concern would be making sure that that right of reversion does not result in it being used for something else other than an animal care trust. So Ms. Malik in our office has been working on that. I will get with her to make sure before next week.
Yeah, I'd appreciate a little clarification just to be sure. I'm all in favor of them expanding their services if that's what it takes, but I'm not really in favor of taking on liability of somebody else's loan to protect our own property.
Yes, sir. Okay, I will confirm.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mara, do you see this being on the 2-week agenda next week?
I'd love for it to, so that they could move forward with their financing. And of course, we'd love to have them come and Inga Frick, our new director, executive director, I'm sure would love to come and speak to you about it as well if you need that or would like that.
Council, are you ready for this to be placed on the 2-week agenda?
No.
All right. Sounds like
Second.
sounds like we need some more questions answered before we put it on the 2-week agenda. Thank you. Councilwoman Coonrod, any question for Ms. Sullivan or unrelated?
Yes, yes, she could possibly answer it, I'm
Okay.
sure.
All right, go ahead.
Just want to know what's the difference with the furniture bank continuing to lease the space on East Main Street and the Forgotten Child Fund, because they're in the same building. And we said we were selling, donating the property to the AIM Center to build affordable housing. But here it's saying we're renewing the Forgotten Child Fund lease till October.
That is the property right across the street. That's the small building across this, well, down the street. It's actually just a down the street, and it's the offices for Forgotten Child Fund. So it's a little brick building. You may have seen it, and it has a mural on the side for Forgotten Child Fund.
Okay, so none of their stuff is in the inside of the building where the furniture bank is.
Yes, there is lots of stuff on the inside of that Main Street building, and then there's another one down the street. So this is a different
portion of it. Okay, just wanted to make sure. I'm sure we would have gotten questions about it, but thank you for explaining.
Sure.
All right, before we let her go, any other questions for Ms. Sullivan?
Good to see you.
I'm seeing no hands. We'll excuse our guest. All right, council, we have no departmental report this afternoon. We do have one committee this afternoon, Legislative Committee. And at this time, I will turn the floor over to our Vice Chairman for our Legislative Committee, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, sir. Have a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve.
Second. Seeing no opposition, minutes will stand as read. We've got two items to discuss this afternoon. One is the panhandling ordinance, and the other is the disparity study legislation. It is my understanding that the panhandling ordinance is not quite ready to discuss. There have been a number of questions that have been brought up and a number of ideas that may be able to add to and enhance the ordinance in its current form. So with that, if there's no objection from this body, I'd like to go ahead and take that out of committee at this time and allow a few weeks for some of those questions to circulate with the city attorney and then come back and hear it when it is ready, if that is okay by the council.
No objection from me.
Good. All right, thank you. Then the next one, and what we will cover this afternoon, is the disparity study legislation. When this council heard the results of the disparity study and took that in, then a few of the members here decided they wanted to put that into legislation. And Councilman Gilbert, you had a few questions, not just about this legislation, but maybe even some changes to it. Would you like to introduce it, sir?
Yes, can you bring up Mr. Salmon? Mr. Tony Salmon?
One moment. Clerk's getting him.
Yes, sir.
How you doing, sir? There is a law that's been passed, and I think Governor Lee was part of it, but it's a Labor Department expanding efforts to cover employers' fraud. In other words, misclassification of workers as independent contractors, fail to report all wages, pay, misrepresent the kind of work performed, or pay workers under the table. I think that this should be something the city would adopt also, because the disparity study is based off people not being misused. It's also based off minorities having the right to be paid equal pay. I think that we, on the purchasing, if we give something to a person to construct or in that nature, that we need to look at them making sure they follow the guidelines. I think that there's other organizations out there that looks and can help us out to make sure that whoever our contractor is, if he subs it out to another person, they are not paying their people appropriately, or if they are not following the law that state has put in place, then we should be able to act on it.
So are you asking, should we have that included into the
I
draft?
would like to have it included because it is a state law already currently, and I think that what we're looking at, if someone abused that, if we contract somebody to do some kind of work for the city and they're abusing it, not going legally, doing what they're supposed to do, then we can, one, I hope we don't use them anytime soon because they're not following the law. I think that we need to send a message that we want to make sure that you're treating employees correctly, as far as paying them the fair pay, making sure that you're not paying them under the table, make sure you're not, make sure you're paying workman's comp. These things need to be in place anyway when we hire a contractor. And I just want to make sure that we will honor this if they're not following this law.
What I would like to do is to yield to have time with our city attorney's office and all the other appropriate individuals where we can review that, because we want to make sure that if we're adopting this, that we're able to place the right verbiage in that to cover that law, as well as you indicated, when it comes to looking to enforce something, how is that done? So there are other components that I think we need to ensure are in place before that is totally adopted. I totally understand exactly where you're coming from, but again, I want to yield to have that deliberation with our city attorney's office and all other parties involved.
Phil?
Yes, sir.
How long would it take for you to do something like this? Because this is kind of we want to go ahead and put this on the agenda.
Yes, sir.
But how long would it take for you to look at something like this and have it ready?
As long as I can find the state statute references here, that can be done fairly quickly here within at least within a couple of weeks max on here. I think we can do that, no problem. And maybe by next week.
Okay, I'll send you what I have. It's on the Labor Department expanding efforts to uncover employers' fraud.
Yes, sir.
You can pull that up by that.
Okay, sir. Yeah, I found some stuff about Nashville having problems with fraud over there as well. I'll look for that.
Okay. Well, let me ask my co-signer on this also, Councilwoman Coonrod.
Yes.
I don't want to hold nothing up, and I know you've been urging to push this through. Go ahead and make this happen. Could we go another week or so to actually put this in?
That's fine. I also would like to hear additional input from our colleagues if they have any additional things they would like to add in. And Jerry, if you don't mind, because I see your hand is raised, is that I truly understand the work of the study that was done geared at, for Black business owners in particular, but we use, again, my concern is us using people of color. Like, I still believe that dilutes the study and what the purpose was for, because it specifically said we're targeting this group of people. I just want a fair process for everybody. And whether if you Black, white, Hispanic, I just want the process to be fair.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. While Mr. Salmons and Mr. Noblett's office are talking about this, I'm not trying to hold anything up, and I'll ask the question now. I'd love a yes or no answer, Phil, but I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get it. We undertook this, or at least one of the reasons we undertook this, was to try to find ways that we could give priority to certain groups of workers basically, especially locals. And I know that when we've discussed pilots in the past, we've been told that, no, you can't put anything in there that would say the employer will give preference to locals. Trying to keep this non-racial, Councilwoman, but locals. And my understanding of a disparity study gives an entity the possibility to look in those directions if we find disparity, which obviously we do, we can, we will. Mr. Attorney, will this help us in trying to steer employers towards locals when they're hiring, or is it not going to be able to do that?
I think specifically in the study that Griffin and Strong did, they did actually deal with the aspects of the numbers of minority-owned businesses and the minority population within Chattanooga in that reference. And we included that in the whereas clauses that we included in the council's resolution in here. And the concern as far as disparity in connection with the report was based upon the population and the businesses that were minority owned or involved. Only 10.78% of the total awards were given to minority and women-owned businesses. So that was the reason for encouraging and asking for that type of study to be done, so that there could be some ability to at least consider minority and women-owned businesses more in the numbers that are going out. We did not attempt to make that a local preference, but we did make it an attempt to do minority and women-owned businesses to be considered and granted contracts with the city on purchasing items.
So am I hearing you say in a roundabout sort of way that no, the local concept of hiring is not part of this?
No, sir. And we were trying to rely on the United States Supreme Court decisions in Croson, which said that minority and women-owned businesses should have some preference.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. So Phil, are we implying that minority means, I guess your term, people of color or black?
Yes, ma'am. It could
Is
be
that-
people of color that would be brown or black people. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because females are already the minority. It doesn't matter if you're black or white. Your female is the minority, and present the change. That's the way the chamber presented it as well. So I'm really confused with the language. I mean, again, the study gave specific instructions to target a specific group of people. And I think that should be implied into the language here, because that's the group of people that the study was for. I mean, are we trying to skate around it? I mean, the disparities are with black people purchasing bids and job opportunities with the city contracts.
Yes, ma'am, but it would include all minorities, not just black people. It would include brown people who are potentially Latino folks that might be included in that list, as well as black people who run businesses here in the city, as well as women who might run businesses here in the city, regardless of their race.
Okay, I'm just trying to get an understanding of what you're meaning by minority, because it's the term is loosely used a lot, and so I guess you're just grouping everybody in. Okay.
Well, ma'am, the folks that did the study on here, Griffin and Strong, were specifically doing that based upon the amounts of city contracts that they saw that were provided to minorities within those classifications, and trying to see if they could boost those numbers up. That's what it's about.
And Councilwoman, also included in the minorities were Asians as well. They did a complete breakdown of people of color.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I mean, I get all that, but I'm just, me personally, I just think using people of color, it continues to have us in this one melting pot. And I just think, it shouldn't be that way. Because when we talk about white people, we're not saying, categorizing them by all the words that could be used for white people. But when it comes to Black individuals, we always have to be grouped in with people of color. I mean, that's just my personal thing. If we're gonna address it, let's just address it and quit trying to put a Band-Aid over the true issue. But again, Russell, I support that. If that's what you want to get Phil to work on, then sure, I'm absolutely, we can push it off another week.
Councilman Gilbert.
Thank you, Council Chairman and Vice Chairman and Councilman Coonrod. Let me ask it a different way than what's been asked. Phil?
Yes, sir.
Out of the minority group, if a certain percentage out of that minority group is behind, will we not favor the group that is the lowest end versus the ones that are not?
They would favor the trying to bring the numbers up of those folks that are receiving contracts with the numbers that are involved in our population here of those types of businesses. Yes.
So you're saying yes, if say for example, if the black minority individuals are behind, say women, or say behind any other group that's in that group, we'll look at them, the lowest ones first, or try to give more business to the individual that is behind with that group?
Well, I think the resolution that you've got in front of you right now has got 8 specific items here that purchasing was trying to show you that they would try to follow in that regard. And that was the reason the resolution was saying that they were going to take immediate actions to try to follow legislation, enhance reciprocal certification, to have vendor outreach to try to get more people of specific groups to be able to participate, to try to forecast on how those jobs might be done, and also debundling of the contracts to make sure that there would be an ability, if it's a very large contract, as you see in some situations, not everyone can participate. So by debundling those contracts, it allows more participation by minority groups that might be available to do that. So all of those are referenced in the resolution that has been prepared in connection with this case, as well as subcontracting goals that might be involved, that would involve race, gender, and ethnicity of subcontractors to provide those services. So that's one reason that the resolution is prepared the way it is.
And
Yes.
to add on top of that, the items that are in the resolution are the recommendations that the study provided us. We want to make sure that we had that included word for word, so that we could address those appropriately. That's what we committed to.
So I think we're saying the same thing when it comes to, if we're looking at minority as a whole, and within the minority group, you got some that's still below the other as far as getting jobs or getting contracts. So we're going to try to encourage the ones that are on the lowest end to get the contracts, or try to look at them, try to improve the numbers.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilman Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not trying to prolong this any longer also, but I think what I'm hearing is, and I've seen a lot of this over the last 8 years, when we're talking about minority and women, I've seen a lot of work go into women's businesses as far as trying to find that. In other words, I think I'm hearing Councilman Gilbert say, is there a way to break out the minorities within the minority so that we as a council can measure true progress of an individual minority group that's within the larger class? So, and I would be all for, as long as we're not holding anything up, all for that type of language. And of course, I'm just one vote, but I would be all for that type of language to do a better job of breaking that out versus, you know, I would hate to see, I guess I wouldn't hate to see it, but in a way I would, the 10%, how much of that went to female business?
Council members, one of the things that the study has shown us is that we need to do a better job of how we are capturing our data. And in capturing the data appropriately will allow us to break it down by the various minority groups. And I think that speaks specifically to what each of you are concerned with, that we're able to measure appropriately what category of minorities are we receiving or doing business with. And that's one of the committed areas that we're going to be focusing on.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you. I'm very in favor of any minority group getting more business. I just would like to be able to see the analyzation of how that breaks out by group within the group. And thank you for your comments and your efforts. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, sir. Councilman Byrd.
Thank you, Chair. I think, and this, I guess, Tony Enfield, I think Atlanta kind of showed us best, Tony, too, when they put in the fact the mayor and created a pipeline to development in businesses for minority groups. And then we started to see how African-American and minority groups started to flourish in Atlanta from getting contracts and stuff of that nature. I thought that was an awesome thing. But then I also seen a change where some groups or businesses, they were started putting the business in their wife's name because their wife was considered a minority. And so still that they was able to figure out the glitch to say, hey, we can still get these contracts. So now instead of going to an African-American or Hispanic or whatever the case may be, I could put the business in my wife's name. So when I saw that, I was like, wow, that was very interesting. And then when we done our disparity study, I was always wondering, have we ever acknowledged the pool of African-Americans or minority groups that can service the work of the city, the work that we put out? How many African-American groups or minority groups, supply and demand, do we have that pool of people in Chattanooga able to do the work? Because if we don't even have those pool of people, then a lot of our business is going to go out of town, and that tax money and those dollars are going to go to other states. So I think I would like to know, do we have people in the city that can service the jobs of the city?
Depending upon the work that's being requested, the disparity study did, as part of their study, bring to light the availability of vendors of color in the various work groups. And that information was a part of the study as well. Mm-hmm. Of course, as we are looking to work towards becoming more diverse and inclusive with the work that we're doing, we're hoping that we could generate more local business in certain areas or in all areas. But if they don't exist in our community area, we're going to have to cast our net a little broader than we have in the past.
Exactly. Phil, could we ever put in place by law that 10% of all business done at the city go to African Americans?
It would only depend on if there were 10% of Americans in our area here who are African-American businesses that were able to do that work. That's the purpose of doing a study like Griffin and Strong has done in connection with this, to establish that the contracts that are awarded are not being awarded properly. You want to make sure that you can at least establish that there is a group of people that can actually provide that work that is being left out of those contracts. And that's why we're trying to do what we're doing.
So do you think it would be imperative for us to also think of the work that is done from the city or by the city so that people can get those contracts, maybe a trade school or some type of educational process to say, these are the city contracts and jobs that we have, and we create a pipeline to say, hey, we're going to teach you or give you the training if you want to learn how to do these jobs, so that then you can then bid on those jobs, and then that 10% then we can put that in place, correct?
Yes, sir. You've got to be careful in how that is done, because I don't think we're in the school business right now here for the city. Right. But if it could be done as some type of offer for trade development here for people, for low and moderate folks, that might be a way to do it.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question, Tony, when we have a minority-owned business that applies for a contract, do we not make a pretty substantial effort to, I mean, do we not have program or the office that works with these companies to basically walk them through and help mentor them or guide them to providing what might be missing in a qualification? I'm looking, I feel like we do that as a city.
We do that, and we're always looking to expand our efforts in doing so. The Office of Multicultural Affairs does an outstanding job in reaching out to a lot of our minority businesses and trying to provide them guidelines and assistance in helping them prepare themselves to be able to do business with the city. The collaboration between OMA and our procurement department is we're trying to strengthen that outreach. And we're also reaching out to other partners in the community where we can develop a resource-based bank of information and help to assist any business who wishes to do business with the city. We want to be able to walk them through, provide them whatever assistance that they're in need of, give them that right direction that would help strengthen their relationship with us. To me, if we're trying to show that we're trying to help them do business with the city, we're strengthening a relationship already. And by directing them to the right resource that will help them address whatever that deficiency is, or that or providing them a resource that's going to give them added value, that's going to provide them not only that resource to go over and beyond doing business with the city, but that strengthens our relationship with them as well.
Right, correct. I think Tony just said, thank you very much. Couldn't say it any better.
Thanks, sir. Councilman Gilbert, you have requested some updates and potentially putting discussion off until next week. Does everybody understand their action items, and is that your desire, sir?
Yes, I hope that Phil can put something together by next week, especially I get information to them. They can look it up and add it to the disparity study resolution.
Hey, Phil, when you are able to do that, can you just circulate that around to the council? And
Yep.
then I will leave it up to the chair to determine where it goes from there, whether it needs to go back to committee or whether it can just go straight to the agenda from there with a sponsor and co-sponsor.
Okay, sir. Yeah, as soon as I get that from Councilman Gilbert, I'll get that around to you.
All right, thank you, sir. Councilman Gilbert, you got another hand, sir?
Hey, this is Phil. Phil,
Yep.
I'll get that to you either this evening or tomorrow morning.
Okay.
But if you look up what I just said to you earlier, you'll find a lot of it there.
Okay, sir. I will do it.
All right, thank you.
All right, seeing no other hands, Mr. Attorney, do we have attorney-client today from earlier? Anything we need to discuss?
Not that I'm aware of. No, sir.
Mr. Chair, legislative was the last committee, sir?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right, then with no, oh, hold on just a moment. Miss Madison has her hand up. Have your hand up for a reason. And there the hand goes. I thought it might. All right. Seeing no further hands, we will be, no, she put her hand back up. Hang on. Let's see if Miss Madison has something she needs to add.
Bring her in here.
I'm working on it. Ms. Madison?
Thank you all for letting me do this. I really wanted to clear up the response I gave you earlier and let you know that we have contacted Southeast Tennessee Development and we got their invoice in the meantime. I just called them up and said, you know, tell them that the council is on our case, so send the invoice. So we got the invoice now and we will submit that check. They can either pick it up tomorrow or we can put it in the mail, whichever they prefer. But that is the conversation. I've spoken with them. The check is ready. The other thing I wanted to apologize to Jermaine Freeman. My last conversation with him was they were working, but really they had cleared all that up. We were just waiting for an invoice from Southeast Tennessee Development District. And we have that today. The check is being cut now. Process now will be ready tomorrow. And if they want us to mail it, we'll mail it. If they want to pick it up, we'll let them pick it up. And that's what I wanted to say to the group while they were here.
Thank you, Ms. Madison.
Thank you for letting me do that.
Councilman Ledford, did you have a response?
Chairman, before Ms. Madison goes, so this is the $300,000 that will be available for small businesses that we desperately needed to get out there. Is that correct, Ms. Madison?
Yes, that's the $300,000 that you just approved. Correct.
Very good. Well, awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chairman.
Chairman Henderson?
I do have a follow-up. I would like to understand, I guess this whole conversation has been a little confusing to me. I assumed that we already had a template of how to get this money out. I would like to understand a little bit better. It doesn't have to be this meeting, on how we're going to disperse this money and how a small business would apply to receive this money at some time in the future.
All right.
Thank you.
Sure. All right. With that being said, Ms. Madison, thank you. Mr. Sammons, council, we will be adjourned until 6 p.m.
See you
See you then.
Everybody.
Thanks.